Okay, I don't have any whiskey this time because it is 11 on a Friday. So I apologize for that. But if you guys want to get a drink, I highly recommend it because it's going to be a little bit of a long one because we got a lot of questions to go over. But I reached out on Instagram and you guys left me some very insightful and important questions like, why don't I like beanies? It's not that I don't like beanies. I have a beanie that I wear sometimes. It keeps my head warm, but it's just an easy thing to nitpick when it comes to YouTube photographers. The first question is tips for starting a YouTube channel. And I think my best tip is to just go into it with good intentions and be patient with everything, because it does take time to build an audience and grow a little bit of a following. And it's definitely going to take time if you want to start making money off of it. And I'll get into a question later on about how much money I make as well. But good intentions, being patient with it, and putting in the time to actually build that audience, replying to comments, making insightful, engaging content as well, not just throwing out a video of you walking around taking subpar photos. Telling everyone about the mistakes that you make, because a lot of people learn better from watching other people make mistakes. So I think that's a good trait to have. And yeah, but main thing is being patient, being honest, authentic, and just taking your time. What did I study in college? My degree was in TV and film, mass communications, and I minored in business, integrated marketing communications, which I have no idea what that means. I just had to take a lot of marketing courses, and I took a lot of TV and film courses, film history, things like that. I didn't learn much in college, and the only thing I really got out of college was I met Josh, my best friend, who I shoot weddings with now. And I'm not saying don't go to college, but I think there's a lot of information out there that you can kind of bypass college these days, especially when it comes to photography or videography or anything like that. The most you're going to learn is actually going out there, shooting, making the mistakes, learning from them. YouTube is a wonderful source of education, but I studied those things and we were using equipment that was super old and super dated, so I couldn't really use anything that was new and fresh and up to date. So I was using all these past equipment that's already been dated for 5 to 10 years. So by the time I got out, there was equipment that I didn't know how to use, so it was kind of pointless. But definitely, if you do go to college, make sure you build connections with people, because that's one of the most important things to do. Don't lock yourself in your dorm room. Get out there, make connections, join groups, things like that. That's the most important tip when you're going to college. Most memorable stranger encounter. The first person that I met for this cars project that I kind of got the idea, his name was Mark. And I was around his property and it was really close to the street, and he saw me walking up with the camera and he's like, "Oh, you like taking some pictures today?" And he's like, "Let me show you something." So he took me to his house, and he actually owned 2 houses, and one was just filled with junk. And we walked in and he started like showing me around, and this was in March or April of last year, so COVID was still like a brand new thing. And I was like trying to keep my distance. I didn't want to like touch him or like shake his hand or get too close, but he kept leading me further and further down into his like garage. And I was starting to get a little nervous about everything, but he was still a super nice guy. And he was just coming off a little weird with the way that he was showing me around his place. And that's probably the strangest one yet. I ended up taking his portrait, and I made an excuse, like I had to go home and cook dinner to get out of there so he wouldn't like kill me and skin me and hang me up on the wall. But that was definitely one of the most stranger ones. How much money do you spend on film every month? I don't have a budget or anything. I just buy film when I run out of film. And I was talking to Vincent Perry last year about how much film I spent for all of last year, and it was around $1,000, which might seem like a lot, but most of it is still in my fridge anyway. So I don't really have a set budget. The main thing that I spend money on regarding film is developer, fixer, things like that. C41 specifically, because it doesn't last as long as black and white. But That's around $30. And then if I buy some developer every couple of months, that's $60. So it kind of just depends, but not as much as you think once you spend money on the film. Do you find the restraints of large format benefiting your portraiture? I think it does, because when you are lugging around a 4x5, first of all, you don't want to take just a random picture. You really want to think about your composition. And I think also when you're setting up the 4x5, you're just allowed to talk to the person, because it does take a while to set up, to level everything out, get all your equipment out. So it gives you time to talk to the person that you're taking a photo of. And I think that allows them to loosen up a little bit, and it maybe might give off a better representation. Whereas if you were shooting with digital or medium format, you would just bust out your camera and start snapping photos, and maybe they're a little iffy on the whole situation, or maybe being a little shy. But the 4x5, when I'm setting it up, I'm talking to them, getting to know them, getting their backstory, things like that. So I think it helps a lot with just keeping them comfortable. And plus, they see the time and effort that you're putting into taking their photos, so maybe they might try a little bit harder to best represent themselves. And I've had a lot of people, when I'm setting up, they're asking me if I want to move something, because they know that it's an important picture. So I think they put a little more effort because they know that you're putting in effort. How much money do you make on YouTube? I only started making money around last September, so I've been getting paid for around 4 to 5 months. I've only been paid twice, and both times were around $170. The ad revenue estimations, kind of right. It's not always correct, but you can kind of see how much I'm estimated to get. It's definitely not a lot, but it's enough for me specifically because I know that I don't have that big of a following, and any money that I make from this, I'm probably going to put most of it back into the channel. And also with the new donation thing that I have, I think that's important to kind of tell people what I do with that donated money. And I know it's not like something that I need to do, but I think it's something that's important to do, because it's your money that you're donating to me. And specifically for the first 15 people, that I think it was 15, they donated around $200, and I used that money to buy some T-Max 100 4x5 sheets. I bought some Portraiture 160, and I also bought some T-Max 100 and 120. So I'm not going to tell you like what I buy every time, but I think it's important to kind of be authentic in that, and just tell you guys what I'm actually buying with the money that you donate towards the channel, because I told you I'm using that money to put back into the channel, and I think that's important for everyone to know that. But don't make that much money off YouTube. The majority of my income comes from, 99% of my income comes from wedding photography. What do you charge for wedding photography? When I first started, I was doing weddings for free, $20, $50, $100, and this was videography at the time. I've only recently started doing photography. But I finally worked my way up, and right now we're charging on average $4,000 for video or photo. So if you book photo and video, it's around $7,000, and we've been steadily increasing our prices for the last since we started. We started, like I said, $100, $200, worked our way up to $1,000, $1,500, and I've never paid money on advertising. I think that's a scam. The best source of advertising is word of mouth, and just treating your clients like gold. Being prompt with your replies, being 100% present on the day of the wedding is the most important thing. Treating your clients like family. I think those are the important things, but recently did a wedding for photo and video, and we got $7,000, which I'm really happy with. And it's just me and my friend Josh, like I said, and we've been doing it together since 2013. I shoot everything and edit. He just shoots, and then I take his footage and edit it. So it's a wonderful combination. He has another job that he has, so it's a part-time job for him, full-time for me, and it's been working really well. When did you fall in love with photography? I don't think I have an exact moment that I fell in love with photography, but when I kind of fell in love with the process of creating things was in my multimedia class in high school, we had to create a PSA on seatbelts, and everyone in the class was doing these cheesy, like, homemade handy cam, like, getting in a crash and like doing all this stupid, terrible acting. And I went a different route, and I decided to get this clip of this guy who was evading police in California or LA or something. And he actually wrecked his car, and he wasn't wearing a seatbelt, and he flew out of the sunroof and did like 15 cartwheels, and he ended up dying. And I put that video in my video, and then at the end I put the Saw music, and then I put all these flashing images of just car wrecks and mangled bodies of people not wearing their seatbelt. And then at the end I put wear your seatbelt. And that seemed to work a lot, so I got an A on that, and my teacher was really impressed with it, and that's how I started shooting videos. What are your current thoughts on the film community? I used to be a little bit more jaded about the film community because I thought my opinion mattered a lot more than it did, and it really doesn't. So lately, it's been a lot better. I've been trying to look at the more positive things in the film community and not getting all down about the negatives that I see. And I think that's helped me a lot. I love the community aspect of it. Everyone is really nice with sharing information and sharing their stories and their work and sharing other people's work. And I think that's the best thing. When you meet someone that shoots film, you immediately have something to talk about. You can talk about developing, processing, shooting, scanning. There's so many different things to talk about in film photography. And I love that a lot of it isn't about gear, and it's not about what camera you shoot with or what lens you shoot with. It's about the process and the film and things like that. When I have a conversation with another wedding photographer, it's almost always centered around what camera you use. And I think that just gets really old really fast. It's either what camera do you use and how much do you charge? And it just gets old talking about the same shit over and over when you're on a wedding day. So it's nice to meet film people that want to talk about the process, the images, and the stories you tell. What does Emma think about taking photos of her? I'm sure she gets really annoyed sometimes by it, but I used to take photos of her more back when I first started, and now I've been doing more of the stranger things. So the last video that I did, taking portraits of her, she's really good about everything. She's a wonderful sport, and I love taking photos of her because she's a beautiful person to look at, and she's really easy to work with, and she's just super fun to make videos like that. But I'm sure she gets annoyed by it sometimes, but she knows it's for a good cause, and she knows that I'm trying to inform people about film. What differentiates a photo from being a snapshot versus a photo with emotion, meaning? I think every photo is at one point a snapshot, and every photo is at one point a photo with meaning. Like, for example, photos of my father, since he's no longer with us, he passed 2 years ago. Photos that used to be snapshots of him are now photos that have a lot of meaning and hold a lot of weight. So I think it just might change over time depending on what the subject of the photo is, or maybe the person that took the photo. So yeah, I think it just kind of depends on those aspects. But yeah, every photo of my father that I deemed like a snapshot back then, like a picture on my phone, anything like that, it holds a lot of meaning now because he's no longer with us. So it can be both ways, and they can lose meaning, gain meaning over time. It kind of just depends on the person looking at the photo, and I think that's what I like about photography the most. Why do you hate Moment? So I don't hate Moment. I don't necessarily agree with everything that they do as a company, specifically the lessons or courses that they make. And I say that because I don't think that they're worth the money that they charge. I think there's very limited amount of courses out there that are actually worth the money. And I don't appreciate the fact that they either hide or don't show all the negative feedback that they actually get for their courses, because when you go on their website and look at their lessons, you see nothing but glowing positive 5-star reviews. And I've talked to many people that have bought those courses, and they've rated it a 2, a 3, a 4, and it simply doesn't show up on the website. And I think that's not the correct or ethical thing to do, because you're putting out a product and you shouldn't hide the negative criticisms that you get about that product. And I think that's doing a disservice to the photographer that's purchasing that course, specifically young, impressionable photographers, because they might be down to their last $100 or $200 that they got with allowance or selling a couple prints or doing a photo shoot, and they're going to use that on your course. And when you can't even put out the negative feedback that you get and you just simply show the positive feedback, I think that's a disservice to a lot of people. And also, I used to care about what people think about the opinions that I have on certain things, but I was like afraid of burning bridges. But honestly, I don't give a fuck anymore. I'm just going to say what I feel, because the bridges that I was afraid of burning in the past, they're pretty much burned now, and nothing has changed for me. So I'm just going to continue being me and giving my opinion, because the opinion that I have, I want that to reflect on people that watch my channel. And the people that watch my channel are going to be photographers that are either just starting or wanting to know information. So I'm going to tell you exactly what I think about certain things. And I don't think you should go spend $200 or $100 on a moment course when they can't even proofread their work or proofread the chapters or put the time and effort it takes to make a legitimate course. How many rolls of film did you go through before you got better? I would say I still suck the majority of the time, and I make plenty of mistakes still, as you can see from the stuff that I put on my channel. But I probably went through a couple months of shooting film and just messing up a lot, and now I mess up a little bit. So I don't think there's any set amount of rolls, but that's why I always tell people to practice on digital. A digital camera is no different than a film camera. The same settings are going to give you the same results exposure-wise. So, I mean, until you get into like long exposure and reciprocity and all that, but it's going to give you the same results. So practice on a digital camera, make sure you got everything down to get a proper exposure, and then maybe you can go over to film. How do you isolate the subject in your photos? A lot of that has to do with the larger format and the lower aperture, like an f2.8 lens on 4x5. That's just going to give you a really shallow depth of field, which isolates your subject. And a lot of people don't take into consideration the distance from you to the subject, as well as the contrast and sharpness of your lens, because I do have a 150 millimeter 5.6 that's a little bit sharper and has a little bit more contrast between the subject and the background. So it kind of isolates the subject even better than the 152.8. So it all kind of depends on all these situations. You might get more subject isolation with different lighting or positioning them closer or farther away from the camera. You just have to experiment with those types of things. But the first thing you can start with is just shooting at a very wide aperture. What do you think about the discontinuation of Fuji Pro 400H? Is it the end of color film? I don't think it's the end of color film for now. I don't know about what the future entails, but I never really used Fuji that much because I used it a couple times and didn't like the results. It was always just green and the skin tones never came out right. So I was always a Portraiture 160 person, but the reasoning behind it is that they don't have access to a specific type of chemical or process anymore. So I'm thinking they're just going to redo everything and hopefully release it at a later date. And I don't think it's the end of color film at all. I think film's going to be just fine for at least a little while. And I think black and white film's going to be around forever. It's been around forever. I don't think that's going anywhere. But honestly, I don't know much about the film industry in general. So I don't think I'm the person to ask for my opinion on that. But I think they're just going to try to figure out how to make it with a different process or a different chemical and re-release it at a later date. The last one is atypical places you look for inspiration. And I don't think I really have any special places that I look for inspiration, but I get a lot of inspiration from movies, books, specific type of music. I've really been digging the Tenet soundtrack. I watched Tenet the other night a couple weeks ago. Still don't know what I watched, but it had really good music. And you can see the time and effort that people put into making that movie. Even if it didn't turn out exactly like they thought, they still put in the time, the effort, and just the money to make something special and try to be different. And maybe it didn't work out. Maybe some people thought it was confusing, but that's okay. At least they tried, and they're going to learn from it. And I think that's what everyone should do with everything they do creatively. Take chances, take risks, and if it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. You're going to be fine. And that's the last thing I'm going to say about this Q&A. I hope you guys enjoyed it. The link down below to donate to the channel is there. Like I said, everything that you donate is going directly back into the channel. It can be 5 cents, $1, $2. I made a unlisted playlist that has 2 videos now. The Kyle McDougall Analog Artisans full interviews on there, and then another video that I did that's film loading and developing, just certain things like that. I'm going to release another video with a full walkthrough of how I scan. And when you sign up or when you donate, just drop your email in the notes and I'll put you on the list that I send out all the unlisted videos to, and you'll gain access to that. Again, thank you guys for the support. I hope you got something from this video. If you didn't, go ahead and dislike it. If you did, go ahead and like it. And then if you have any questions about anything, let me know. So I'll see you guys later.